Hey everybody, welcome to Tuesday. It's that time of year again. I can't believe it's this time of year again. E3 prediction times. E3 2021 predictions. Now, for people who haven't been around this channel that long, my E3 predictions are a little bit different. I do like market trends. So instead of like, I think there's going to be a new game in this series coming out of everyone's ass, I don't like doing that, because it sets expectations that aren't really based on anything except I really want this new franchise. And then people are disappointed in a game company because they got all hyped because some gaming website pulled there's going to be a new Star Fox or Kid Icarus or Donkey Kong game or something like that out of their ass. No evidence of anything, and then people are disappointed. I don't like doing that. So this is more market trends and what I see looking in that way. Kind of like every other industry does, but gaming is just so stuck. Enough about the games press. If you like this sort of analysis that is a little different from a lot of other people's, I could really use Patreon support right now. I just got hit by $1,000 vet bill. Yeah, $1,000. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Okay, so we're going to do real quick on PlayStation because PlayStation, as best we know, is not going to be at E3. They did that State of Play a while back. Then they did the Horizon Forbidden West State of Play. They showed off Ratchet and Clank. And that seems to be it until later in the summer. They got out before the deluge. Probably a smart call. So, this is not the first year that Sony's really scaled back. I don't think it's a bad move as much as it doesn't feel complete. It doesn't feel like that sort of head-to-head, everybody's there. But companies shouldn't give a shit about that. Companies should do what's best for their company. And, the big realities facing PlayStation right now is that semiconductor shortage and a lack of PS5s with people who want them. Now, there are a lot of PS5s in people's homes. Some people are upset that there's going to be a PS4 version of games, but they have a PS5 and they were promised that it was going to be PS5 exclusive. That was before a semiconductor shortage, and you still get the better, shinier, faster load times version with your PS5. If I had a PS5 right now, I would not have buyer's remorse. Just saying, I've not even seen one in the real world. So it doesn't make any sense for Sony to go all in on marketing because they don't have the supply to meet the existing demand. Never mind more demand that they'd create with mad hype, right? Makes sense. Nintendo, similarly, I know there's a lot of stuff about Switch Pro going around. I see less than 50% odds. I'm not saying it's impossible. They might announce like a Switch Pro for like next year. But there's also a lot of good reasons for Nintendo not to announce new hardware right now. One is, again, the semiconductor shortage, right? If they can't get enough PS5s made, right? People, like everybody is having a semiconductor shortage right now. Smart fridges, smart washers, cars. It's not just gaming consoles that are having a semiconductor shortage. It's everything. So announcing new hardware right now, you're buying yourself a lot of headache. I think part of it is supply chain stuff due to COVID. A lot of it is stuff not due to COVID. I'm not sure what's going to happen long term with the semiconductor stuff. But the other main thing with Nintendo is, think about it. There was a huge rush on the Switch last summer. Switch is sold out with Animal Crossing and COVID. A lot of people still have a fairly new to them Switch in their house. Nintendo's got a killer install base for games. There's announcements about games porting to Switch still. And the Switch is a real nightmare in terms of optimization. It is very, very dated hardware. But Nintendo, throughout the company's history, has done really, really well on really dated hardware just because so many people have it. And so if I were Nintendo, I would announce a Switch Pro for this holiday because so many people have only had it 1 year. I'd have some cute, if you liked Animal Crossing, you'll like titles coming out for holiday this year. Something with maybe another, Mario X Rabbids Kingdom Battle, or I'd love a good straight up Donkey Kong game. Maybe something with Zelda in it. Though Zelda, there's been a lot of talk about Breath of the Wild too, right? We'll see. That usually they only do one Zelda title a console, but they did put out a Link's Awakening remake. They did a couple of remakes, didn't they? My fan thing, I want a Twilight Princess port for the Switch. Because you can't play it on Wii's anymore. I gave my Wii to my mother. I want to play on Switch without that stupid waggle. I'd like them to improve the controls. It's still a great story. But I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying I would like it. Nintendo can continue to move software. Switch, last I checked, the Switch is still doing really well in sales. There's no need to cannibalize the sales of the Switch for the sales of, something they'd have to gear up and manufacture. So the company who's looking to move hardware this year is Xbox. Because you can find the Xbox, whatever they're calling it, in stores right now. Bethesda and Xbox had that big, acquisition thing. I think there's a lot of anticipation for that Bethesda Xbox conference. I think they probably will announce something big from Bethesda. I do not expect it to be out this year. I could be wrong simply because Xbox wants to sell systems. One of the things we're going to see this year, and if I had to guess, I'd go with the latter, is if Xbox is primarily trying to push hardware or if they're trying to push their Games Pass program. And I really think Xbox thinks its future is in that sort of subscription Games Pass format on PC with a side of Xbox. They might be right. I'm not sure. PSN is getting better, but Games Pass just seems to have that. It's a different demographic, right? It's a different subgroup of gaming consumer. PlayStation is all about those first party experiences. They've been right up about that. Games Pass is all about that one, that flat fee. You can play all these different games. Maybe they're going to bundle Bethesda somehow into that. Maybe that'll be their big announcement because everything's going to drive to Games Pass, right? I'm not totally sold on Games Pass as a primary business model just because developers need to make money. And we've gone over how it's pennies on the dollar that they'd be making if they sold the game at full price. Now, the argument is, but you'll sell way many more games, but I still don't think it makes up for a proper full release. The best thing for Game Pass is when you're planning a sequel, put your thing on Games Pass or PSN or something like that so people sample and they'll want to buy the new one. But if people get used to just playing whatever's on Games Pass, they're not going to buy that new game because they're waiting for it on Games Pass. Now, I think Games Pass is a good service for people on fixed incomes who can only afford to spend so much on gaming each year. I think it has its place. I just think Xbox really needs to still cultivate those AAA system selling experiences, even if it is for PC. You've got to have those flagship titles. You gotta. Because it gives a face to your brand. Master Chief has no face. We recognize Master Chief very, very well, but Master Chief has no face. Halo is not what it was, unfortunately. I'm so disappointed with what's happened to the Halo franchise. There will be some sort of Halo news. We know that. Some sort of Halo news. Because there's always Halo news. But Xbox needs those new IPs. Maybe there'll be a new Hellblade. I don't know. They need something there. Games Pass is just, it's a practical, affordable idea. And that's precisely why in the gaming space, it's not terribly exciting. You have to be kind of crazy to make a splash in the gaming space. And that leaves pretty much everybody else, right? I don't see any Activision presentation. Capcom is doing something. Take-Two is doing a diversity, equity, and inclusion panel. That's not games. This isn't the time for that. You want to do that, do it another time. Bandai Namco's got something. They're doing an E3 2021's award show, which I saw that, and I was kind of like, no, not another award show. I'll probably be skipping that because I don't care about game awards. But, Square Enix, the PC gaming show is probably going to be the highlight for me this year because there's no big show otherwise except for Microsoft. And my gut tells me the Microsoft thing is going to be something of a letdown because the expectations are so high because they're running their own race this year, but we'll see. Warner Brothers. I am so frustrated with Warner Brothers business practices right now that I am angry at them and can't be objective. But, Square is going to be Final Fantasy, again, maybe some Tomb Raider. They don't need to do anything else. Final Fantasy is such a beast of a franchise. Square can coast. Gearbox, but Ubisoft is going to go two ways. They're either going to do a very predictable, what they always do, glad handing their community, rah, Ubi fans. Here's what we're unveiling in terms of our various games as services properties. For Honor, I don't even remember if they do Just Dance anymore. Rainbow Six, Division, like all those, right? They could rest on their laurels with that because they've already done Far Cry. Maybe they'll do a little bit more on Far Cry, right? I really think not for Ubi as a company, but for the IP. They gotta show something from Beyond Good and Evil 2 for that IP. Because if they don't, we're in the what is wrong with the development of this title phase. Now, it could have been that was one of the ones that got really wrapped up in the whole, sexual harassment scandal and the departure of quite a few high-ranking executives at the company. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that whole, community-sourced art asset experiment just failed terribly and they had to play catch-up. But for the sake of that IP, which was no guarantee to be this big hit to begin with, I think there's a lot of nostalgia for that IP and people. The concept, I went back and tried to play Beyond Good and Evil a while back. The game itself was not as good as the concept behind the game. They got to do something there. I expect there will be a couple other announcements. Maybe one of their cute little indie sanity projects. Maybe another Tom Clancy something, right? But Far Cry 6 is going to be their big holiday game this year. And I think it would be really foolish of them to cannibalize on that one the way they did. I mean, I still haven't played Valhalla because something else came out at the same time. And I was like, let a big tentpole like Far Cry have its moment. Especially with, Giancarlo Esposito fronting that. Let that be a behemoth Give us a couple other indie games. That's it for holiday. Ubi sometimes has a bad habit of putting too much out at the same time. Though, I mean, Valhalla DLC or maybe a Game of the Year edition or something like that, I wouldn't mind jumping on if there was extra content and I got a little more value for my money. I admit with Valhalla, it's because it's Vikings. I haven't played it yet. I'm kind of burnt out on Vikings. Because God of War was Vikings. And the TV show Vikings was Vikings. And there's all this Viking stuff. Vikings are the new Greeks. And I'm burned out. I'm just burned out. I hear it's a wonderful game. It seems really cool. But there has been other things to attract my attention. And that's why Capcom having a presentation has me intrigued. Because that's not a normal beat for E3. There's no time on it when I checked. There might be a time now. But obviously, it's what's next for the Resident Evil franchise, specifically Resident Evil Village. Is there going to be some sort of DLC announced for that franchise? I don't know. Maybe not. It would be silly if they weren't trying to get something together now, just because they have so many characters in that game with so much more story to tell. There is the lords in that game and the Duke are so underutilized. They'd be silly to not, even slap a demo together of more of the puppets, right? For some sort of prequel DLC, 2022, 2023, something, just keep us hooked. That would be smart. But it's Capcom. Capcom's a weird company. So we'll see what they do. That's, again, a hope, not a prediction. But overall, I think this is just, other than Xbox, this is just sort of going to be a don't lose ground year. I think mainly because of COVID, some other market pressures, the fact that the whole world has been kind of trapped in amber, in limbo, for, over, I've lost track now, 18 months at least, longer. But there may be a lot of 2022, 2023 announcements. I think this Christmas, hopefully, it would be smart. Each company has their one big tent pole, and that's it. The focus is get the game out on time. Not broken. That's all they have to do. Except, again, Xbox, who has to convince people to actually buy the console they invested in, because it's probably the only one that's going to be sort of a Black Friday thing. If there's even a Black Friday this year. In the US, it will be. Everybody's back at the malls in the US right now. So they need some sort of Black Friday door crasher. The Xbox is the only one that really fits that bill. They need something that's going to be a strong bundle to just catch up. Because as much as they claim they're all in on Games Pass, that console branding matters. People don't fanboy a subscription service, right? I know there's people out there, Games Pass. That's the lingering fumes of Xbox fanboyism, right? Subscriptions, again, they're handy, they're practical, they're economical for people who can't afford more. They're a good idea. They're not sizzly. So, That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking this E3. I will be streaming as much as I possibly can on Twitch. Though that Saturday, I don't know. I mean, right now we're looking, the 12th is Ubi. Gearbox, we'll see. Sunday, the big thing is Bethesda. Though Microsoft Bethesda, I keep calling it Bethesda, even though it's Microsoft. We're all tuning in for Bethesda. Let's face it. Square Enix, PC Game Show, Future Game Show, whatever that is. Warner Brothers at some point. And then by Monday, we're sort of at Capcom Take-Two, Nintendo Direct, all right. But it looks like the big show is going to be Saturday, Sunday. this year, which is gonna be weird. But it's weird times, right? Okay, again, speaking of weird, my wallet's weird this month. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/AnnaK. Thanks for watching.